Welcome to the Wellness for Women show, where we talk about life, weight loss and everything in between. I'm Faye Casement, founder of the AAA Way Life and Weight Loss Programme, and I'm here to help you put together the pieces of life and weight loss for one last time. This is an episode of the Wellness for Women show, filmed live in the free Facebook group. Hello, and welcome to another bonus episode of the Wellness for Women show. And in today's session, we are going to be talking to the lovely Liz Hancock, aka the EFT Coach. And she helps to transform women entrepreneurs who find it difficult to charge their worth, as well as those who've been left with scars from divorce and who lack confidence and self-worth. So welcome, Liz. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Faye. Thank you. It's lovely to be here. I'm very excited.
Good. Well, you're my second official interview style guest. So this is all quite new to me. So you have to bear with me as well while we go through things. And half the battle is trying to say other people's names and what they do when you're not used to saying.
Yeah, 100%.
But no, it's absolutely lovely to have you here. So for the purposes of those who are listening, Liz and I really only met in the past couple of weeks, and we've had a little chat offline. But other than that, well, we say little. It was meant to be sort of a little chat, and then we were just like, well, we probably should go like about an hour and a half later.
It was a good hour, wasn't it? Yeah.
But for the purposes of the show, we'll try and keep it to about 30 minutes tops and give everybody a chance to get on with their evenings. So but it's just both speaking out on our relative our reach on our topics, isn't it? And we're obviously both very passionate with regards to what we do.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about you then, Liz. What is it that you do in your own words rather than me saying it?
Sure. So I just love, I'm not obsessed with money, but I am obsessed with the mindset around money.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons is actually not much to do with money. It's because so much money is just like a really easy way to get to it, because people think that they need healing for money wounds and stuff because they realize how it impacts their business and how it impacts their standard of living and all that kind of stuff. But usually pretty quickly we're getting into, well, I didn't feel good enough when I was a child. I thought that if I was really successful, then I might upset my dad because he wants to be, they don't actually say this is a subconscious thought that they have. Or, I can't be better than my parents because then that's almost shaming them. It's going against their, not being respectful to their struggle, if you like. So like as soon as I start working on a money thing, it's not really about the money. It's all about childhood not feeling good enough. And if you're not feeling good enough, then, when I talk about money, I say for savings, if someone says I haven't got enough, that very easily and quickly gets translated to I'm not good enough or I'm not enough.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to work on. And then the reason I've now added the relationship stuff into it as well is because when I went through my divorce, I thought I managed the whole financial stuff quite well, because marriage is about love and divorce is usually about money, nearly always. Money and the kids, ideally. It should be about the kids first and foremost, but often they are wrapped up in the money issues. And so I took myself through my processes that I'd done for my money mindset stuff with regards to business. I tweaked them for going through my divorce. And a lot of old stuff came up that I thought I'd healed from my childhood that I hadn't, new ways of looking at it, new layers and nuances, but it was just so effective. And it gave me the strength to do what I thought I was doing, which was getting a pretty good deal. I was just so dedicated to getting a roof over me and my kids' house that I wouldn't say I fought tooth and nail, but I negotiated well. I stood in my power.
Yeah.
Since then, things have got a bit complicated, but we won't go into that unless you want me to. But doing, again, it wasn't just about the money in the relationship. It was about the feelings of betrayal. And I'm not talking about affairs here, but, betrayal of, and that person not mourning the life that you always thought you were going to have, that you suddenly realized you weren't going to have, and grieving for the relationship and so much of that stuff. So, and that's why I just love what I do. And like with EFT, with anything that we do, you always have to niche, don't you? It took me a long time to find my real sort of love. And I did do weight loss and body image for quite a while, which I still love, but it's the money in the relationship wounds now that I could just talk about it all day.
It's like now. No. Well, this is what you hear. We're here to hear everything about you. And I know that was one of the things that one of the ladies in my membership said to me last week, was that, oh, you could have asked how she got into such and such. how Melanie, who we had last week, how she got into doing what she's doing. So I needed to make sure that I asked that. But I think you're kind of covering that. But I don't know if there's anything else that you would add into that in terms of how you got into, I mean, how you got into coaching? Because actually we also shared the fact that we've got HR backgrounds, business and corporate backgrounds as well, so we were quite similar in that sense, weren't we?
Absolutely. So I mean, the coaching, I did very sort of traditional HR at first, like worked up from being an HR administrator, lots of hiring and firing, I guess, but it wasn't, that sounds a bit blasé, but all the sort of transactional stuff, grievances, disciplinaries, all that kind of stuff. And later on, the training and development and the management development, and then being trained by outside coaches who were quite forward thinking, really opened my eyes and gave me a lot of skill. And then because obviously I've combined that with EFT now. So for anyone that's listening going, what on earth is EFT? EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. It's also known as tapping. And you might have seen people, if you're listening to this, you won't see what I'm doing, but they tap on their acupressure points, just various points around the face and neck and head, and sometimes arms, hands as well. Boy George was doing it on I'm a Celebrity. Prince Harry's been seen doing it and talking about it. But when I started, my son's nearly 13, so I discovered it about 13 years ago now, actually, when I was pregnant with him. And I'd had a pretty traumatic birth with my daughter. I'd seen an advert for a birth trauma workshop, signed up, went along, was a bit late. I'm always late for things. And walked in, and these people were doing this weird thing. And I just thought, what the hell is this? And I probably would have ran away, but I was so big, being really pregnant with a massive baby, that I didn't. And I stayed. And within 20 minutes of me being paired up with someone, I had no trauma left at all from my birth experience.
Wow.
And I was booked in for a C-section with my son. It was all arranged. And I just said, you know what, I think I want to give it another go doing it naturally. And I did. I laboured at home for 17 hours and I went into hospital for the last 2. I had a water birth in the end. I did have a lot of gas and air. I was horrified to hear recently they've stopped giving it in some hospitals. And I did scream the place down, so it wasn't all like flowers and music, and there's a lot of screaming, but I did it naturally, and it was the most amazing experience of my life. Actually, when I realized, wow, I'm actually giving birth to a baby, it's not being ripped out of me, it was so amazing. So and I'll tell you a funny story if you like. It's a bit gross, but because with my daughter, I'd passed out after having her and had this really I thought I was dying. I remember I felt like I was falling and I wasn't floating at the top of the room. So I thought I must be going to hell because I'm falling. So it was pretty horrible. And my husband thought that I was dying because I was passed out and they were pumping me with loads of stuff. But with Josh, they after they had to get me out of the pool and then on this birthing stool, because I had to deliver the placenta. Now, I obviously did do that before, but I was passed out for it. So when that happened, I thought I was having another baby. I thought I had twins. I was just like, what on earth is happening? And they didn't think to explain it to me because they didn't know what had happened before. So it was funny. It wasn't traumatic, but it was just such a surprise. And so it was an amazing birth, but the placenta bit was a bit gross and a bit shocking. So sorry for any men listening, but
no,
I think you're mostly women.
should in theory be mostly women, but you never know. And and I'm sure then they'll soon be like, placenta, I've dived on for money mindset and maybe a bit of weight loss. It's always It's always I think birth stories, especially. I mean, I've obviously got a birth story. I've got a 16-year-old daughter. My birth story is quite a funny one in one sense as well. I nearly gave birth in the hospital car park.
Oh wow.
So mine was a bit of the opposite, really. It was all relatively quick, but I then suffered from postnatal depression after, and so I think sort of the trauma almost of the birth and the speed, and it's just like, I'm not ready for this. And I was joking in the hospital about they didn't give me the manual, and then there's these deadpan nurses like sort of not laughing along with me, and then I'm just feeling stupider and stupider, and then I think it's a hard time for anybody when they give birth anyway, but let alone if there's been other circumstances going in and around it. And I didn't have coaching then, and so I'm dabbling with EFT as well. I've actually just signed up to become a belief coding facilitator, which is a relatively new modality, but I had some done on me, and it's just been mind-blowing, just like what you had really with the sort of that experience of EFT and releasing things that you didn't really kind of having to release. And I'd like to think that if I had all of these tools in my toolbox back then, or for various other chunks of my life, my life might have been different. Might not have even got divorced, for example. Who knows? I mean, not talking about going back, and have a very good relationship, luckily, with my ex-husband, and it's all amazing, so I'm very lucky in that sense, but you can't help but just wonder what life would be like if you'd have found these things earlier.
No, I agree. I think sometimes, and if we'd found them earlier and just allowed that sort of sense of self acceptance and self-love. Like, when were we ever taught that at school or by our parents? It just didn't happen, nothing against them, they didn't know either.
No.
But now, like, our children, I know they go through a lot more than what we did, perhaps, or at least more. It's more sort of influenced, perhaps, but social media and stuff. But at least we've got the wherewithal to go, okay, I'm not saying I can help my daughter. I know my daughter will probably need therapy. Well, she's had some actually, so she'll need it for quite a while more with the breakup and everything. But to be really supportive of that, and to say, okay, well, that's not working. Why don't we try this? And she's so anti-EFT at the moment. I hope it's just a phase. She did a video for me when she was in like year 1 about tapping with a bear and stuff. It's so super, super cute, but she kills me that it's still on YouTube. But she, at least we can say, okay, well, I'll completely support you in your journey, and perhaps try this, or whatever you try, I will support you. So I think that's the greatest gift we can give our children, is showing them and admitting when we're not okay and when we need some help, not expecting to get it from them, but showing them that you can access it from other people, and it's all right for them to do that as well. And for us to let go of our egos and go, do you know what, maybe I can't help my kid on this occasion, someone else needs to. But to allow that to happen without that damaging you and having like, oh, I'm a shit mum, then I'm not, all this internal dialogue that is so, well, I know my mum used to say anything I'd say to her, she, oh, it's all my fault, everything's my fault. And it's like, no, it's not. But actually, when you say that, it feels like it is, or it's all my fault, and it just perpetuates it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is difficult. And I think my mind's been opened more to what we say around our children, and again, especially with the weight loss, with what I do, I kind of can't help but think of all the kiddies who are living with parents who feel restriction and extreme restriction are the only way, when it's not, and what they're learning and what we're passing through. And again, part of the work on the beliefs that I'm going to start doing with the belief coding, again, is that I was talking to people this week about sort of that generational, and called it generational trauma, but again, it was just like you say, it wasn't that our parents just didn't know, because there wasn't this same kind of talk and dialogue. And so I was having a conversation with them this week, and it baffles them a little bit when I'm talking about this, and my dad's just there going, my mind's completely blown, but you do you. Whereas obviously, our children, may then have the benefit of some of this. And I know my daughter's benefited from the work that I've done on myself. And when I was very worried about her becoming a teenager. So again, one of the beliefs that I had, because again, we all hear that the teenage years are the worst years and all these kind of things. So every parent goes into the teenage years with this belief, thinking it's going to be the most horrendous time in the world. and that our kids are going to be, you know, these horrendous beings that just, you know, welch on us and live their lives and whatever. And actually, if we're going in with that mindset, then that's what we're going to see, isn't it? You know, that whole yellow car syndrome, that if you go in thinking that your kids are going to be horrible, then maybe actually, well, what are we doing to perpetuate that? Whereas I made the decision that I was going to come into our relationship with compassion and love. So if there was, you know, ups and downs because of, as you would expect from teenage years, I wanted to approach those with compassion. And I know myself well enough, and I've communicated that to my daughter, that if you want me to fire up, then effectively accuse me of doing something that I've not done. So if you can imagine, like as a teenager, it'd be like, well, why didn't you tell me that not to do something? And I'd be like, well, that's not my fault. All right. And I'll come out and I know that I can get quite defensive. Whereas in having the awareness about my defensiveness means that I've been able to tone that down, and then also step back and step away from a situation. And likewise, because I've learned how to communicate better as a result of my coaching and self-coaching, because I know myself better, then I've been able to say to her, look, if this happens, then, you know, this is the way to handle me, really. You know, if you want the best out of this relationship, this is the way to work me as well. 100%. And it's definitely made a huge difference to us. And so, you know, the power of coaching is just
it is huge, isn't it?
And the EFT as well, like I say, I've been dabbling in it myself, and when obviously from a coach and a life coach point of view, we work a lot on the thoughts, you know, the thoughts leading to the feelings, leading to the actions. And with the but sometimes I think it's quite hard for people to build in the thought work and to perhaps get to the point where we can capture it, but how do we really kind of cement in that new thought to start that to start the cycle that serves us? And actually the EFT, I think, is actually a good way of doing that, because you're kind of having this intense session with yourself where you're kind of coding it in, aren't you? And it's
100%. It works so beautifully with things like affirmations and all of that. But what I'm really passionate about is, like, I love law of attraction and all of that stuff, but I think we've got to really acknowledge when we're not feeling great and are like the belief coding. The obvious thing is to say, well, that belief isn't true, so therefore I'm just going to change that belief by rewording it and saying something else. But actually what we need to do is say that belief out loud while we're tapping, because then it loses its power. And you suddenly realize, subconsciously and consciously, that it's rubbish. But actually, if you're just pushing it away and almost putting it in a box and shutting the box down, it's just there like a literally like a jack in the box wanting to pop up. And when you do that, that's when it causes problems. And it will pop up at some point, usually when you're having a crisis, which makes the crisis so much bigger and more downward spiraling. Whereas if we acknowledge it and release it through the EFT and saying it at the same time, then we can move on to the more suggestive, maybe it's not so bad, maybe it's safe to let this go, and then you can do the positive stuff. It takes a little bit longer, but it's definitely worth it, because the benefits are so much greater. Just I think allowing ourselves to feel those scary feelings and to voice them, because so often we're not meant to, are we? We've been told, our generation have been told that we're not meant to do that. We're just supposed to sort of get on with it. And then we've come into this area where we do coaching and we have all access to all these other tools, and we're kind of like half in, half out. So all that reassurance, re-educating our subconscious mind is so important, so that we can make that transition and then be the best examples for our kids. And not always the best examples, because we won't always get it right. But you know, I'm all right getting it wrong. And I find it really easy to say sorry. And do you know what? I got that wrong, and I'm really sorry about that. And that's one of I get really angry when my kids don't do that. I get really angry, and I need to have ways to cope with that, because it's, you know, I haven't had that in my life. My husband would never, ever take responsibility for anything, never acknowledge when he did anything wrong, ever. My parents did the same, especially my mum. So, you know, bless her, she passed away a couple of years ago now, or just over a year. But, you know, she was only doing what she could do, but it still caused me harm. And it's okay to verbalize that and say it, because that is the reality. And that doesn't mean to say that I'm saying bad things about my mum. It's just saying that that was the situation.
Just accepting the situation.
Exactly. Acceptance.
And I think that's it's an interesting, I talk a lot about acceptance and accepting, but accepting, like you say, not with the intention of just making do, is it? It's like true acceptance is definitely powerful. And that's where, again, I think with my weight loss, especially when I started to accept and started to not fight reality as much, you know, like you say, our past is our past. Whatever's happened, we're all a construct of, we're exactly where we are now because we're a construct of what's happened in our past. And the more we can release off some of that, definitely the more we can live that fulfilled life, isn't it? And I think there's just, for me personally, the more I find awareness of where something comes from, it's almost like it's an instant well, that makes complete sense. You know, whereas before I'm like, fight, where is it, why do I feel like this? I shouldn't feel like this.
100%. And I love it when people have that realization that, oh sorry, that's my dog making a strange noise. I don't know if you heard it. He's agreeing with me. So Parley, can you be quiet, please?
I'm waiting for the cat from my end, so it's all right.
They're not quite as loud as dogs. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, that when I had a new client today and she's finding her business really hard. She just can't, she's got all these plans, but she can't start on them. She can't actually do her email list and set up her Facebook page. And I said, well, you know, why do you think that might be? And really get her sort of close her eyes, get her feeling into it. Well, if I do, then I might get rejected again. If I do that, then someone might criticize me. What does that remind you of? I'm obviously simplifying it here. What does that remind you of? It reminded her of her marriage and her childhood. So is it any wonder why she's not doing that in her business? And I think it's very similar for weight loss. What we always do, we make a subconscious vow to remain loyal to our parents' struggle or to rebel against them. And the rebellion is usually conscious. So, for example, my mum was quite overweight. Mine wasn't actually, but I'm just pretending for this. If my mum was quite overweight, then I might make a conscious decision that I'm not going to be, because I want to be healthy and I want to be slim and I want to feel good in my clothes because I saw the struggle that my mum went through. Well, that's great, because you probably will succeed in being slim and fit, but you're probably always going to be having that battle in your head. So you're probably going to be a fat person in your head, which is, I think, just as bad, because that's what I've been in the past, just as bad as actually being overweight. And I'm maybe overweight people might disagree with me, so I'm very conscious, you know, it's so complex, all of this. But the subconscious vow might have been, with many people, I've got to remain loyal to my mum's struggle. So if my mum was overweight, then my subconscious is going to make sure that I sabotage myself, that I can't lose weight, that I stay this size, that I have health issues, because then I'm honouring my mum's struggle and I'm not sort of doing better than her to shame her and make her feel bad. And obviously, I don't think any of us would do that logically in our minds, consciously, but the subconscious is, I heard a stat, I think it's like 90% of the brain, only 10% of the brain of our actions come from conscious thoughts. 90% are unconscious thoughts. You think, well, if someone in your group is really struggling, hopefully that might help them. Like, are they remaining loyal, subconsciously loyal to one of their family's struggles? And
so many things, isn't it? It's not necessarily even the family, friends, or things that have been said or done. It's society as well. It's culture, and one of the things that I talk about a lot is just the habits that we form. You know, the plate clearing, the fact that we eat meal deals. You know, all these little stories that we've gathered along the way about food that change our food relationships. You know, and so it's really diving into all of those. And just like what you said about the money mindset, it's never about the food. If true transformation, true food freedom and life freedom is about going beyond what you think the problem is, like you say, sort of. And I think that's what you were trying to say when you were saying about, you know, the person who's sort of trying to fight and saying that, you know, I've got to be this person, is that they're still suffering effectively, because they'll be shoulding all over themselves and saying how they've got to do this and they've got to do that, and they'll probably be downright miserable, even though, yes, they may look the way that they expected. And that's why, like say, self-image, body image, it's so important if you are working on weight loss to lose it with love, which is again something else that I would encourage, because otherwise, if you hate yourself all the way down, you'll still hate yourself at the bottom, and that's not the aim 100%. Of it. It's not just about the body, it's about the life, and about wanting to be happy in yourself and in your life wholeheartedly. And again, this is why I also believe in health at every size, because it doesn't, you know, I'm not a size 8 muscle bound, you know, typical health coach, you know, that you perhaps would see out there. You know, I'm just a real girl, but I'm somebody who found myself, and I found life and a happiness in that process, you know, which is the difference.
I lost you for a second there, Faye, sorry.
No, that's okay. One of us is frozen. But yeah, it's just saying that's the journey, really. It was doing that inner work, identifying the stories, because, you know, I still have perhaps cake and biscuits pretty much every day, you know, and I did the whole of my journey 70 pounds down. It's not the food. You know?
Yeah,
it was more amazing. About how I was eating it, when I was eating it, why, but most importantly, why. Like say, because either out of habit, you know, even like toast comes with 2 rounds of bread. I don't know where that came from, but you could have one piece of toast, you know. But for some reason,
loads of butter.
Yeah, for me, bread comes in 2s. Yes, it's because it goes in a sandwich, and you know. But again, you can have a sandwich with 1 piece of bread, you know. If that satisfies your hunger, then that's absolutely fine. It's whatever you know, whatever works, and it's just about playing about with quantity and quality. But again, for real transformation, it is about identifying, like you say, those beliefs, those habits, and really saying, well, where do they come from, and is that something that I want to keep? And like you say, getting that story out into the open, whether it be through journaling, EFT, through coaching, the belief coding that I'm going to do, you know, whatever modality works, or a mix of all of them, you know, to just kind of get it out is
absolutely and I think that's so important, that I think everyone should try stuff. I mean, I call myself the EFT coach, but I use a load of other modalities as well. That's my main tool, and I usually put it into other things. And I am biased, but I do also think EFT works on. There's only one person it hasn't worked on in my experience, and that was my mother-in-law. So make of that what you will. But yeah, like matrix re-imprinting. I've even done, like, I do some clients as well, past life stuff. So much, and you know, hypnotherapy, timeline NLP, there's so many things, and I think we can just like enjoy trying them and finding out what works. And also I think, especially with weight loss, because it's such a big thing, weight loss and body image, I think it's really important to not think, oh, I've wasted all that money or all that time or all that effort on that course and that course, because in a lot of cases, a lot of things are a waste of time. But also, whatever's happened, it's got you to where you are now. And that's where you're meant to be. Yeah, exactly. And wherever you are now, whatever you've got right in front of you, maybe that's the thing that will work. So I think never giving up, and always knowing I might crack it this year, but then in a year's time, I might have a new challenge that might push me back a bit. Like I was rocking it, and then before my divorce, I just had to shrink because I was grieving for my relationship before it was even over. And then various other things. And then after my mum died and my ex-husband turned on me, and I thought, like, I'm an EFT coach. I teach this shit, and I'm really suffering at the moment. But it's okay, because the life does go up and down. And I think this vision of a perfect life just is nonsense, absolute nonsense. And it causes so much destruction, that thought alone. So, you know, if you do crack it, great, but just be like I say, I am a recovering food addict, or, you know, recovering person that has issues with their body. I don't think I'll ever be healed. I have to keep, like, I have to keep work. I have to keep doing the work. well, I can't imagine not. It's like a recovering alcoholic.
Mm.
You still have to go to the meetings. You still have to be really aware.
Yeah.
So,
And I think, and I would imagine that works the same with the money, because it certainly works in the weight loss. That again, if you don't, you have ideally be very mindful of which method you pick. And I think this is why we yo-yo diet, is because we go too hard on something, or again we pick something that's just not sustainable, not sustainable with it. And it's the same with business, isn't it? Is that if you want a business, one of the things when I started my business was, obviously I wanted it all yesterday. I was completely stuck in the results line of wanting it yesterday, and then of course it's all the judgment thoughts of, why isn't this done, why isn't that done, I'm not doing enough. And again, like I say, it all comes back down to judgment. It's always the biggest saboteur. And then when you're in that judgment, that's when your overwhelm comes, and then you doubt, and then like you say, you go into flight, fright, or freeze, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas actually, if you can recognize that you actually you are exactly where you need to be, and have that patience. And I think it's why it's important to learn to sail your own ship, especially like I say, that's why I don't give my ladies a method like you do at a swimming club and say, right, okay, eat this many calories, or do this, or do that, or do the other. We work on intuitive eating, and that's then based on life, and them finding their own way, and finding their own thing. And I think that's been a powerful thing for me to then try and bring into my business and my money mindset and everything like that, is that I just got to do what I did for the weight loss. So it was so interesting when you said that I took what I know about money and put it into my divorce work, because I do think that there are so many parallels between what we do. And that's, I was literally just 100%. Writing that in an email for something earlier, that what I actually found, I went into it for weight loss, but what I actually found was so much more, because I found that I could then use the tools that I'd gathered for anything in life. And although I thought that and if anybody had asked me, I'd have said, oh yeah, life, it's fine, I'm absolutely fine, I've got no problems, I don't have any hidden skeletons in my cupboard or whatever. Now journaling every morning, I'm like, like do this belief coding every day. All these
too many cupboards.
But it's, again, it's like you say, it's that suppression, just kind of I told myself that I was fine for so many years, whereas actually I wasn't. I was just holding it down. And then it was no wonder that every time I'd hold it down, and then all of a sudden it would be like, it'd explode. And again, that would then fit with the peaks and troughs potentially of the weight and the weight loss and everything like that. Whereas now I've been more, like I say, I've got like that, but it's not like that, like it was.
Exactly. And I would imagine the peaks and troughs go more with the ebbs and flows of the other stuff that's going on in your life externally, not that you're just not victim blame, but not that you're creating, not that you created it in the past, but much more governed by your inner thoughts in the past. I didn't know
what I was doing. I was literally on autopilot of crash and burn, crash, burn, crash, burn. Whereas now, like I say, I have my moments like everybody does, where you're not perhaps feeling yourself. Most of it's hormone related for me. I think I was telling you that when we met before. But,
we had a good chat about that.
Sorry, can't stop talking about
that. Me neither. Oh, we could do a whole nother episode on that. I love it.
Talking about hormone, but even that, I would, when I try and fight the reality of that situation, and I go into judgment mode of, I shouldn't feel like this, and this is rubbish, and women don't have it easy, whatever, it just gets worse, my suffering gets worse. And so again, using the modalities that we've got to try and release that off, it's so relieving. It's so relieving.
We are so lucky to have these tools, and I love what you're doing. You're sharing this with so many people, and it's like you're teaching. I love what you said. You're teaching them to be the captain of their own ship, but I feel like we're also giving them the sailors that sail that ship with them.
We're one of the shipmates. We've got the rudder, which is kind of like the sort of guide, isn't it? Sail, and then maybe we'll blow the wind in the sail to make them go a bit faster, or whatever.
Exactly.
I do love a good ship analogy.
No, I love that. That's really good.
And again, it's so important. I wouldn't, and anything that you do or I do, again, all of our clients, they'll go on a journey, won't they? So again, you're in that boat, you're at your dock, and where do you want to be? That's the island we're going to get to. Actually, maybe we need to divert to this island, you know. So
I love it.
And that's all part of the course, isn't it? It's all part of the map of life.
Totally. I love the saying as well, a ship was built for the high seas. It wasn't built to stay in the harbour. It has to come into the harbour because it needs to be repaired and maintained and painted and cleaned and all that malarkey. But it's fine as long as we're doing that, then it will survive the high seas. So I think you're doing a brilliant job for that.
Our regular maintenance.
And a great load of shipmates.
Absolutely, yeah. We do need community. Again, something I was writing about earlier, really, so which is always quite funny how these things come up. I find that when I'm talking to my members at the weekend, I'm like, well, you're in my head because I'm writing about that this week, you know, and it's just like we start talking about similar things. It's always quite crazy how that comes up. But yeah, just sort of the power of having people and a community behind you. I mean, that's why I went in for membership. It was a big thing. I had a Facebook group when I was losing my weight, and you know, I had my tribe. But again, you can just have a tribe of one with your coach, or you know. But again, it's so important to have support mechanisms around you with people who are doing the same or similar work, I think, as well. And people or people that are supportive of your journey and understand you, like you say, you need your shipmates with you.
You do. Sure. And that is the beauty of social media now, and Facebook especially, is like, I know some people, Facebook friends aren't real friends, they're fake friends, but actually there's so many people I've met who I would say there's a couple a few, quite a lot actually, that I've never even met and I might never meet, but there are others that I have met them, and when I have, I felt like I'm just seeing a friend that I've known for years, because I have known them for years. It's just I've known them electronically. So
and
it's still so valid.
And I think this kind of interaction as well, you know, like on Zoom, it doesn't feel any different to me really. And like I say, I've got with the members that I've got, we meet up and I talk, and I actually did meet one in real life. It's like I've known people now for, where are we at now? Like 4 years it had been.
Really?
And I hadn't met them in real life, and then I met somebody in real life and went, "You're real? No, you're real." I can see more of you than just this. We should have sat here in cardboard boxes because I only used to see ourselves shoulders up. She's like, "I thought you'd be tall." I'm like, "No, I'm 5'1". I'm tiny.
Oh, I feel like I need to say that. So a lot of people say I'm a bit psychic, or you know, just intuitive or whatever, but I feel like you need to do events with your membership. You know, they'd just be amazing.
We were going to have a little gathering, so we were going to have a little retreat of sorts, but I'd be up for that at some point. But
I think you'd be amazing. Like to help women in the area that you are, I think is so important.
I mean, I think all of the work that all of us do in the heart-centered area and coaching and everything like that, I think it's all important work, because I say it's just so transformational, isn't it? And it's just letting know that everybody's there. And I'm sure that you're the same, that I've not been able to get my soapbox since founding. Anybody still long enough to listen gets the breakdown of why I think it's so amazing.
But no, that's, you walk your talk, and that's brilliant. It's great to see. Lovely.
I am very conscious that we've gone over again.
We have a bit. I was like, do you want me to say anything else? And I'm very conscious I haven't got my lighting right, and I have just been on TikTok as well a while ago and thought my makeup was perfect because I must have a filter on. So I don't know who's watching this, but if we do it again, I'll make a bit more of an effort.
No, you look absolutely fine. As I said, I'm just like dazzled by lights and a bright shirt. So I'm going to say we'll end the broadcast and love you all and leave you there, and we'll catch you all next week. So bye for now, Facebook.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget, if you want to boost your life and weight loss the AAA way, check out the relevant links for today's show in the description. Speak soon.